He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "So you're selling yourself now?" I wanted to scream. He had no idea what I'd been doing, or why. And in that moment, I realized just how little he understood me anymore. My name is Jenna. I'm 32 years old, and until 2 weeks ago, I thought I was in love with the man I was going to marry. Daniel and I had been together for 5 years. We lived together, shared bills, well, I paid most of them, and had what I thought was a future. But lately, it's felt like I've been carrying all of it on my back. For the past 8 months, Daniel's been in between things. First it was the app he wanted to build. Then it was the online business. Then, nothing. Every morning, I'd go to my office job at 8 a.m., then wait tables from 6 to midnight, just to keep up with rent and groceries. Meanwhile, he stayed home, watching documentaries on YouTube about manifesting success. I didn't complain, at least, not out loud. I kept believing he'd bounce back. I kept hoping he'd see how hard I was trying, how tired I was. But instead, he grew colder. Quieter. Distant. Sometimes, it felt like he looked at me with disgust, like my effort annoyed him. That's when I found it, the ad. Professional cuddler wanted. No experience necessary. $80 an hour. At first, I laughed. Then I read more. No sex. No kissing. Just closeness. Hugs. Talking. Emotional comfort. It felt weird, sure. But it also felt human. Like I was finally giving something to someone who appreciated it. My first session was with an older man named Paul. He'd lost his wife. All he wanted was someone to sit next to him while he told her favorite stories. I held his hand. He cried. He paid me in cash. And I went home. I didn't tell Daniel. I told myself he wouldn't understand. That it wasn't his business. That it was temporary. But deep down, I think I knew the truth. I didn't want to face what his reaction would tell me about us. And when he finally found out, it was uglier than I imagined. He didn't ask why. He didn't ask how. He just spat it out like venom, "So you're selling yourself now?" And that was the moment everything began to unravel. When I met Daniel, he made me feel like I could breathe again. For a while, he was everything. We met at a bookstore downtown. He was charming, quick-witted, and had this boyish spark in his eyes like he was always seconds away from a great idea. Our first date lasted 6 hours. We laughed until my cheeks hurt, and when he walked me home, he said, "You feel familiar, like I've known you before." Back then, he had ambition. He talked about starting a tech company, traveling the world, building a life that didn't follow anyone else's rules. I fell in love with his passion. And for the first couple years, we were unstoppable. He'd surprise me with takeout after work. He'd leave sticky notes on the bathroom mirror that said things like, "You're the reason the sun rises." It was dramatic, romantic, maybe even a little ridiculous, but I loved it. But slowly, things changed. It started after his second startup failed. He took it hard, worse than I expected. He said he needed time to figure out his next move, to regroup. But weeks turned into months. Then a year. He stopped getting out of bed before noon. He started playing video games again, the ones he used to call brain rot. He used to bring me coffee in bed. Now he barely looked at me. I picked up a second job. First it was just bartending weekends. Then I started working weeknights too. Every time I came home, I hoped he'd surprise me, have cleaned the apartment, maybe made dinner. But it was always the same. Crumbs on the couch. Takeout containers. Silence. I felt invisible in my own home. And then, one night I stumbled on it. A Reddit thread about professional cuddling. At first, I thought it was a joke. But there were real people sharing their experiences. Clients who just needed someone to sit with them. Boundaries. Rules. No nudity. No touching without consent. It was like therapy, but warmer. I signed up out of curiosity. But the money was real. $80 for an hour where someone just needed presence. A hand to hold. A shoulder to lean on. Some were veterans. Some were just lonely. I told myself it wasn't wrong. That it was better than cheating. That it was work. Real work. And honestly, it made me feel something again. Useful. Wanted. Valued. Still. I was careful. I logged out of every app after each session. I deleted texts. I kept it separate from my life with Daniel. Not because I thought it was dirty, but because I knew how he'd twist it. How he'd judge me without ever asking why. And deep down, part of me knew this secret was going to explode. It happened on a Tuesday night. After a long shift at the restaurant, I came home exhausted, drained, but strangely, content. My last cuddling client had been a 70-year-old retired teacher named Leonard. He told me stories about his late wife, how they used to slow dance in the kitchen. He didn't cry, but I could feel how much he missed her. I held his hand. I listened. And when I left, he whispered, "Thank you for making me feel human again." It stuck with me. I was in the kitchen, reheating leftover pasta, when Daniel walked in holding my phone. "Whose Cuddle Buddy booking request confirmed?" My stomach dropped. I had forgotten to log out. I opened my mouth to explain, but I never got the chance. "Are you kidding me, Jenna?" he barked. "You're letting strangers touch you for money? You're disgusting. You're just another girl selling her body." My heart started pounding. "It's not what you think." "Oh, so what is it then? You just happen to lie down with men for cash? But you keep it secret? You delete messages? You hide it from me?" I could feel the heat rise in my chest. I cuddle people. I listen to them. I sit with people who feel like ghosts in their own lives. It's not sex, Daniel. You seriously think that makes it better? I clenched my fists. You haven't touched me in months. You barely even see me anymore. And I have busted my ass to pay our rent while you play entrepreneur. He laughed, a cold, bitter sound. So this is my fault now? At least I'm not prostituting myself under some emotional therapy label. That word stung. Prostitute. At least I'm not cheating, I hissed. He narrowed his eyes. What do you call getting paid to lie in bed with strangers? We stood there, staring each other down in the dim kitchen light. It was like looking into the face of someone I didn't know anymore. Someone I didn't even like. Then, without another word, he turned and walked into the bedroom. I heard the drawers opening, bags being thrown around. He was packing. "You know what," he said from the doorway, slinging a duffel over his shoulder. "Stay in your little fantasy world, Jenna. One day, you'll realize what you've become." He slammed the door behind him. I stood in the silence, still holding my plate of pasta. It had gone cold. And then the questions came, crashing in all at once. Did I go too far? Was I really wrong? Or was I just doing what I had to survive, to feel something, to not disappear completely into someone else's failure? I didn't know anymore. All I knew was, we were broken. And maybe we had been for a long time. A week went by. No calls. No texts. Just silence. At first, I was furious. Then numb. Then something worse, uncertain. Maybe I had crossed a line. Maybe Daniel was right to walk away. I replayed our fight 100 times in my head. His voice haunted me. But every time I thought about apologizing, I remembered the look in his eyes, judgment without understanding. Like I was nothing. Like I disgusted him. Then, one night, my phone buzzed. "Daniel, maybe we should talk." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed, "Tomorrow, 3 p.m. same cafe as last time." The cafe smelled like burnt espresso and stale croissants. I sat at the corner table, the one by the window. When Daniel walked in, he looked tired. Unshaven. Eyes a little sunken. But not sad. More like annoyed. "Thanks for meeting me," he muttered. I nodded but didn't smile. I wasn't here for nostalgia. "Look," he started. I know I got angry. I was hurt. Blindsided. "But if we're going to fix this, the cuddling thing has to stop." I raised an eyebrow. "If we're going to fix this, you have to start contributing. I'm not your mother. I'm not your ATM." He rolled his eyes. "You don't get it. That job changes the way I see you. It's humiliating." I leaned forward. "You want me to quit comforting strangers while you sit at home playing YouTube guru? I paid rent, bills, food, for both of us. I did what I had to do because you refused to." He opened his mouth to argue, but then it happened. A loud voice behind us, "You lying piece of garbage." We both turned. A woman, tall, athletic, brunette, maybe mid-30s, stormed over and slapped him, hard, across the face. "So I was just your backup while you were living with her," she shouted. "All those nights you said you were figuring things out, you were still playing house with her?" The entire cafe went silent. Daniel stammered, "Rachel, this isn't, save it," she snapped. "We were together for 4 months. 4 months. I felt my stomach twist. My ears rang. I couldn't breathe. "You were seeing someone else?" I whispered. "The whole time you were judging me?" He looked at me, eyes wide, lips parted. But no words came. Rachel turned to me. "You didn't know?" I shook my head slowly. She scoffed, grabbed her purse, and walked out. Her heels echoed across the floor like gunshots. Daniel sat back, pale. I didn't say a word. Because in that moment, I realized the one thing more painful than betrayal was the hypocrisy. He called me disgusting while he was cheating on me the whole time. And I had been breaking myself to protect someone who never even respected me. We walked out of the cafe in silence. Daniel kept glancing at me like he was waiting for me to scream, to slap him too, to cause a scene. I didn't. I was too stunned. Too tired. We stopped near his car. I turned to him and crossed my arms. "You were cheating on me," I said flatly. He winced. "It wasn't serious." 4 months, Daniel. That's not a drunken mistake. That's a relationship. He looked down at his shoes. "It was just physical. Nothing like what you did." That line hit me like a punch. "What I did?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You mean cuddling? Holding people who are lonely? Giving comfort to men who haven't felt human in years? You think that's worse than sneaking around behind my back?" He shrugged. "You let strangers touch you. That's different." I stepped closer, shaking with anger. "So it's okay when you get pleasure, but I get paid to give comfort and suddenly I'm a whore?" He didn't respond. That silence told me everything I needed to know. Suddenly, moments from the past few months started flashing in my head like puzzle pieces snapping into place. The times he left the apartment late at night claiming he needed space. The way he always turned his phone face down when I walked into the room. The laughter I overheard on a FaceTime call he quickly ended when I entered the kitchen. I had asked him once if he was seeing someone. He scoffed. "You really think I have time for that?" I wanted to believe him. God, I needed to. But deep down, I'd felt it. I just didn't want to admit that the man I loved had stopped loving me. I turned to walk away. He grabbed my wrist. "Wait, there's something else," he said, voice low. I froze. "Rachel, she's pregnant." I didn't move. "She told me a week ago." I wasn't sure it was mine at first, but she confirmed it. And just like that, everything shattered. He had known. He had walked into that cafe demanding I quit my job, blaming me for our relationship falling apart, while carrying the weight of a secret child he'd already created. I looked at him one last time, searching for the man I used to know. He was gone. You judged me. Humiliated me. Made me feel like a monster, I whispered. And all this time, you were building a life with someone else. He opened his mouth, but I didn't stay to hear it. I walked away. Not because I was angry, but because I finally understood. I wasn't ashamed of what I'd done. I was ashamed of how long I stayed with someone who never deserved me. I moved out 2 weeks after that day at the cafe. I didn't cry when I packed. I didn't even leave a note. Just gathered my things, paid my half of the last month's rent, and left the keys on the counter. The silence in that apartment had become louder than any argument. I found a small studio not far from the city. It wasn't much, just a mattress on the floor at first, mismatched dishes from a thrift store, a second-hand couch, but it was mine. There was peace in that space, even in the emptiness. For the first time in years, I could hear my own voice again. I kept working. Still held my day job. But I scaled back on cuddling, not because I was ashamed, but because I finally didn't need it anymore. I'd started doing it to feel seen. To feel useful. Now, I was learning to give that to myself. I started therapy. I thought I'd spend the sessions talking about Daniel, about the betrayal and the lies. But instead, I found myself talking about me, my silence, my people-pleasing, the way I'd poured from an empty cup over and over again, hoping someone would notice I was bleeding. I wasn't broken. Just tired of shrinking myself to fit inside someone else's expectations. It took time, but I healed. I even started dating again, casually at first. But on my terms. I no longer bent myself into someone's idea of good enough. I didn't chase love. I waited to be met. One day, I ran into Rachel at a bookstore. She was showing. Alone. We had coffee. She told me Daniel moved to another state, said he wasn't ready for fatherhood. Of course he wasn't. I didn't feel rage. Just a quiet, steady sadness for both of us. We were two women who had loved a man who couldn't love anyone more than his own reflection. But I was done carrying shame that didn't belong to me. I did what I had to do to survive, and I won't apologize for that. But next time, I'll never stay in a relationship where I have to explain my worth. I don't know what Daniel tells people about me now. Maybe he still spins stories. Maybe I'm the villain in his narrative. That's fine. Because I know the truth. I lived it. And if you've ever felt forced to choose between survival and someone else's approval, maybe you know the truth too. So I'll leave you with this: is emotional survival ever wrong when the person you love already gave up on you?